in the first Gulf War 20 years ago and set the oil installations and the oil fields ablaze. Oil will be the lifeline for the new Libya, but in the old Libya, relatively few ordinary people benefited from the huge wealth it generated. For a seemingly rich oil-producing country, Libya in the countryside has few trappings of wealth.
In Libya,
the petrol wealth doesn't reach the people. It's spent directly on Gaddafi and the people around him.
Libya was making around $150 million a day from oil. It's hard to see any of that in AlJazeera, which is now suffering from a shortage of food and medicine. A walk through the local hospital tells the story. It serves 250,000 people, covering an area of 1,000 square kilometres. It manages on a budget of less than 5% of what is needed and survives through handouts and donations.
People maybe died because of shortening happened here. And many of people go to Egypt and Tunisia to treat it there because the facility, no facility enough to cover.
There is much to put right in Libya, much that the people need. But what they need most now is their leader to go. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, AlJazeera, Eastern Libya.
Well, it's almost 7 weeks since the uprising in Tunisia, and the country's political system is still in turmoil. 2 ministers in the caretaker government have resigned just the day after the prime minister quit. Plus, the violence, which died down after President Ben Ali stepped down, has flared up again. Nazanin Mushiri reports.
There is a heavy security presence in the capital. For the first time, alongside the police and army, the National Guard. Working together, they say, to maintain order. In the past few days, several people have been killed in clashes here. The escalation of violence, something not seen since Ben Ali fled. The interim Prime Minister Mohamed Ghannouchi has gone, but the protesters remain outside his old office. They say their demonstrations are peaceful, all the trouble caused by armed militia who infiltrated their ranks. Their demands, the resignation of the entire government. How long do you intend to stay here?
For all my life, to save the future of my children and the children of mine. I will stay all my life.
This is the man who wants to bring calm. Badji Kaid Zebsi, an 84-year-old politician. He served under Tunisia's post-independence leader Habib Bourguiba. Mohamed Abu is a lawyer imprisoned during Ben Ali's reign. He says the current administration is facing an impossible task.
It seems people want to accept harsh solutions. The people got rid of the Ben Ali regime in this revolution, and they don't want to go back to the past. The problem is that people are not used to political matters, which requires compromise.
Tunisia is still a country in turmoil, unable to move on from its past. There's no mood of reconciliation here. It seems the revolution that toppled Ben Ali many weeks ago still isn't over. Nazanin Mushiri, AlJazeera, Tunis.
Police in the Democratic Republic of Congo have arrested more than 30 people after an attempted coup. The government said up to 60 armed men attacked the president's house on Sunday, killing 7 people. Leader Joseph Kabila wasn't at home and was unhurt. Fighting spread to a nearby army base before the Republican Guard put down the attack. Egypt's top prosecutor has imposed a travel ban on former President Hosni Mubarak and his family. He has also ordered a freeze on all their financial assets inside the country. A Danish boat carrying a family of 5 and 2 crew members has been seized by pirates in the Indian Ocean. The boat is reportedly heading to Somalia. The family includes 3 children between the ages of 12 and 16. In Iran, there's growing confusion about the whereabouts of opposition leaders Mir Hossein Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi. The pair have been under house arrest since the beginning of February. It's now been reported the 2 have been moved by security forces. Mousavi's daughter said she had been prevented from going to his house for 2 weeks. A British security officer found guilty of shooting dead 2 colleagues has started a life sentence in Iraq after escaping the death penalty. Danny Fitzsimmons is the first Westerner convicted by an Iraqi court. That's since the 2003 US-led invasion. He said he shot the men in 2009 as an act of self-defense. Well, 2 American security guards accused of killing 2 Afghan civilians are back on trial in the U.S. The men worked in Afghanistan for a division of the company formerly known as Blackwater. They were tried last year, but the jury couldn't reach a verdict. Tom Ackerman reports.
Christopher Drotleff and Justin Cannon were hired by Paravant, a shell business for the company formerly known as Blackwater. Their job helping to train Afghan soldiers. That was until May 2009, when an incident left 2 Afghans dead and the contractors fled the country. The 2 Americans say they fired their weapons in self-defense at the Afghans riding in a car which rammed their convoy and then tried to run them over. An Afghan pedestrian was also hit at close range and was among the dead. Prosecutors say the Afghans' car was never a threat, and a U.S. Army review found that the 2 Americans had been drinking that night and violated weapons policies. The incident was not the first involving questionable weapons use by Paravant Blackwater employees in Afghanistan. Official U.S. reviews have accused other company personnel of unauthorized possession and reckless use of Afghan military weapons. The chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee said Blackwater was actually damaging, not helping the Afghan training mission.
And if we fail to make sure that contractors like Blackwater play by the rules and live up to their commitments, we'll be doing a disservice to our troops by making their already difficult and dangerous job even more so.
Levin has urged the Defense Department to reconsider its award of a potential $1 billion contract to Blackwater for training Afghan soldiers. But both the State Department and CIA last year awarded Blackwater and its shell companies new contracts to guard their facilities in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Afghan President Hamid Karzai has set a 2-year deadline for all foreign security contractors to leave his country. The retrial of the Afghan shooting case follows a U.S. judge's dismissal of manslaughter charges against other Blackwater security guards working for the State Department in Iraq. Investigators found that in 2007, they killed 14 unarmed civilians without provocation, but the judge ruled that the evidence was inadmissible. Tom Ackerman, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Well, New Zealand came to a standstill on Tuesday as the nation marked exactly a week since a powerful earthquake struck. The city of Christchurch bore the brunt of the disaster, and police say up to 240 people may have been killed. Veronica Pedrosa reports.
A Maori elder calls to welcome the living and mourn the dead. The Prime Minister and top officials bow their heads. Bricks from the ruins of Christchurch symbolise the devastation around them. And New Zealand stopped, a week to the minute since a powerful earthquake. Emergency crews from around the world too silenced their jackhammers. They joined millions of New Zealanders in sombre tribute. 2 minutes of silence to remember the dead and missing. Prime Minister John Keys called it one of New Zealand's darkest days. The official death toll is still rising.
The number is fluctuating, but the figure that you've quoted of around 240 is solidifying.
A major inquiry has been promised to find out why so many buildings collapsed in Christchurch.